What's up, passionate Pokemon players? I'm Ryan, and we're here for another episode of the Hawks Pokemon Nest. Excited to get into this matchup. We've got one of my wildest decks yet, Wild Weezing, for us. Now this one's very RNG based deck, so we'll go through the deck list, why each card is there, what each card does. We'll go over the strategies of playing the deck, the strengths and weaknesses of it, and then we're going to talk about some other cards to switch in or out of the deck. So without further ado, let's get into what we came to do. Here's the Pokemon of the deck. We'll start off with the mascot of the deck, which is going to be Weezing. And now this one's been out for a little bit. It's from the 151 set. And really its ability, Let's Have a Blast, is going to help us have a blast playing this deck. If this Pokemon is in the active spot and is knocked out by damage from an attack from your opponent's Pokemon, flip a coin. If heads, the attacking Pokemon is knocked out. That's pretty crazy when you think about it. Yeah, basically, this Weezing, it's only got 110 HP. Probably going to get one shot by pretty much anything that attacks him. But let's hope that who is attacking him is going to be a two prize Pokemon. And I've played matches where I've gotten 3 in a row, and I've just won because all 3 are 2 Pokemon, and they've knocked out 3. Or sorry, they're like EX Pokemon. So I'm getting 6 prizes, and they're only getting 3. Obviously, it is a gamble, but hey, there's always fun in that. Now, its attack is still one that can slowly chip away, and the reason is Spinning Fumes. So it does 50 damage for 2 energy, but it also does 10 damage to each of your opponent's benched Pokemon. So that's kind of cool. You can basically just hit their bench for 10, 10, 10. If they've got some weaker Pokemon on their bench, maybe it's taking them some time to evolve or things like that, then we can sometimes knock out their bench after quite some time. And we've got more ways to do it. So this deck is really about that. So I built it to where it's going to, number 1, have the gamble of having Weezing take extra prizes, and number 2, just kind of start spreading damage on the bench. So here's the next way to do that. So first let's talk about the Gastly, which is going to evolve into our Gengar. The Gastly, I did throw 2 of them in from the Paldean Fates. I'm not sure where exactly, if that's his original one, but anyway, in case he gets stuck in the active, I'm going to go with Allure to draw a card for an energy. You rarely even want to, be honest, put an energy on your Gastly, but if you have to, you have to. Then I have the Gengar EX. Now he's there. He can attack in a pinch if we really need him to with tricky steps, but I really put him on just to hang out there with Gnawing Curse, which is whenever your opponent attaches an energy card from their hand to one of their Pokemon. Put 2 damage counters on that Pokemon. So we're already hitting their bench for 10 damage a turn when we're using Weezing's attack. Now they're taking even more damage when they're attaching an energy. So pretty cool to do there. Okay, and then we'll round out our Pokemon here. I did throw in a whoa, it says Pidgeot. It should say Pidgey. Whoa, let's update that. What? Pidgeot, it's a new Pokemon called Pidgeot. It is the weakling version of Pidgey. Just playing. Okay, so we've got the Pidgey here, and again, I chose this one. I usually choose this Pidgey because of the call for family. Just another way, again, if it gets stuck in your active spot, you want to be able to do something, especially if this is a turn 1 or turn 2, really. Call for family, let you put 2 basics onto your bench, which can actually really help us with our Weezings or Gastlys and things like that, right? And then finally, our last 2, we're going to have the Pidgeot Ex. 2 of those. Just really helps us search exactly what we need. We don't really have a draw engine in this deck, so Pidgeot is going to kind of act as that card that helps us get everything that we need. Moving on to the trainers in the deck, we've got Buddy-Buddy Poffin times 4 of those. Very important to get all 4 of them into there, in my opinion, because we want to do our best to find one early and then just swarm our bench with our Koffings, make sure that we get our Gastly and our Pidgey also on benches early as possible. Now next up, I've got a Night Stretcher, 4 of those Night Stretchers. We need all of them. You know, if we're playing a 1-prizer deck and we want all of our knockouts to be Weezing, we're going to need to be pulling at least 2 of Koffing and 2 of Weezing back. So you can kind of use it for there, but you're also going to need them for energies at times too. So that's why I did throw in, we'll see later in the list, just one Super Rod. Is it enough? I don't know. You could consider going 3 Night Stretchers and 2 Super Rods, but I'm not really a fan. Now, Rare Candy, 3 of them. I'm a little bit nervous on this one. That's actually what I removed one Rare Candy last to put in one of those Super Rods because it's important. I mean, we do have Arven to pull our Rare Candies easily anyway, but if 2 of them get prized, then we could be in trouble in terms of making sure that we're able to get both Gengar and Pidgeot out. Then here's the one Super Rod. I just don't want to get stuck like not being able to pull a Weezing into active. This deck is done for, and we don't have a lot of room for error, so I did throw one of them in there. Maybe in an ideal world, you wait, once you get 2 of them knocked out, you're going to put 2 Koffings back in deck, and use a Poffin to pull them out. You know, whatever strategy works, but at least you've got that as kind of a backup. Ultra Ball, 3 Ultra Balls, always my kind of sweet spot in my opinion for Ultra Balls. Gapejaw Bog, now this one is the fun one, and now I will say this is the only card in the deck that is going to rotate out soon. We're about a month or so away from that happening, right? But it's too good not to include, so enjoy it before rotation happens. Maybe you'll mess around and like increase your Rare Candies to 4, and then throw in some more of these of the Super Rods in there when this rotates. But anyway, whenever either player puts a basic Pokemon from their hand onto their bench, put 2 damage counters onto that Pokemon. When we're spreading out bench damage, and we've got Gengar in there for every time they're putting an energy onto their Pokemon. Let's say, for example, your opponent puts down an Eevee. It's going to cost them 20. Then they're going to put an energy onto that Eevee to get it ready for when it gets into active. We're already talking about 40 damage. All you need to do is hit it once with your Koffing for 10. It's knocked out if they can't evolve it fast enough. So pretty good. I really like this card for this deck. So that's why we threw it in. It's going to rotate, but hey, enjoy it while it lasts. Arven, we need 4 Arven. We want to pull our Devolutions, our Evolutions, and then our Amulet of Hope as well, which is also a tool. And then obviously whatever items we need, whether it's Night Stretcher, Poffin, Candy, whatever, right? We've got a decent amount of good items in this deck. Boss's Orders. Love me to throw 3 Boss's Orders in here. Almost went down to 2. That was another one I considered swapping for a Super Rod, so if you think you might be okay, but I like the idea of pulling Pokemon in that have kind of got some damage spread on them, especially if that can get us the game. Iono, of course, I want 4 Ionos because this is like my only way of like getting out of a bad hand or really drawing at all, aside from my Pidgeot. So I'm going to throw 4 of them in there. Amulet of Hope, now this one's a good one. I think it really fits this deck, and it's really the only ace spec I would consider. I mean, maybe a Prime Catcher, which we'll talk about, but I like this one, right? If the Pokemon this card is attached to is knocked out by damage from an attack, search your deck for up to 3 cards and put them into your hand, and then shuffle your deck. So this can really help us. Like, if we can get this onto our Weezing early, then we can get whatever else we need. Maybe that's a Rare Candy and a Pidgeot, and then another Weezing or something. I mean, the 3 cards just makes this key where we want our Pokemon to get knocked out. This isn't a deck where we want to get like no prize cards taken, so this is really good, and we've got Arven to be able to find it. And then our other tools are going to be a TM Devolution and a TM Evolution. Now the Evolution is one that's like, it's a little bit iffy because we're only going to use it on Weezing, right? I don't have any Haunters, I don't have any Pidgeotos in the deck, so I was like, do I really need this? But as I continue to test it out, it does help me to get those Weezings out there as quickly as possible. If turn 1, I'm able to get a Koffing inactive, get an energy onto it, and really I'm talking about the first turn I'm attacking. I'm able to attack, and I've got 2 Koffings on bench, and I could get an Evolution. I'm pretty set for the match. To already have 2 on bench, and then have my Koffing inactive, whether or not that one gets knocked out after, if it does, it sucks, but I've got 2 Weezings ready to go. And then the Devolution too, we're spreading damage. This is a great late game card when we've got a good spread of 50, 60, or even 70 damage on bench to just throw out a Devolution when your opponents are evolving like the Barrels or even their Pidgeots. we can just knock them out in that point. So I really love how this works. Really great late game card to just sometimes win you the match. Now last minute I made this change, so I don't have a lot in here, but I did decide to go ahead and throw in 4 double turbo energy. It is going to make it a lot easier for our Weezing to actually attack and start doing some bench spread if we get that. The downside is obviously we can't grab them back from our discard, so I'm going to go with 4 of these and then 6 of our regular energies. Now what are the strategies of this deck? Is to get Gengar and Gapejaw Bog out in order to get those energies flowing, energy and placing onto bench as quickly as possible. Really, perhaps, which is why I put it first, perhaps even more so as a priority than getting our Weezings out there, because you know the damage spread is going to really help you out when you do get Weezing, right? And then attack with Weezing, right? Get him into the active, let him get knocked out. But make sure you have other ones ready to go so that you can just keep spreading damage onto bench and active. The spinning fumes, I mean, it does only do 50, but it's gonna add up eventually. I mean, you're probably never going to knock out like a Charizard EX if it gets into the active with that. That's gonna take you what, 7 turns or something like that. But you can continue to spread damage out there, and if the Charizard EX is trying to knock you out, I'll tell you what, you probably ain't going to go 3 Weezings knocked out and get 3 tails in a row. I mean, obviously you can, but you know, those happen. So whittle down their Pokemon and let's have a blast and watch some fireworks, okay? So that's really fun. The strengths of this deck is it's mostly a one-prizer. Right, it's mostly a one-prizer, not completely, because your opponent can boss up some Pokemon and do some damage. The good thing is, like, this Gengar EX has 310 HP. You know, you don't really have to worry about him getting one-shotted. The problem you will worry about is he does have a 2 retreat cost, and you're really not wanting to put energy on him. You do want to save a lot of that for your Weezing so that you can make sure that they're good to go. I think now, and I actually haven't even tested this out, as I mentioned last minute threw in the double turbos, so I think it could help now that we're going to maybe just throw in the double turbos. It could free up some energy so that you can throw on the Gengar in case he gets bossed up, but that makes it really a mostly one-prizer. From there, you're pretty much able to, in essence, one-shot everything if you get that heads when they knock you out. And think about this too. This is happening on your opponent's turn, right? As they're finishing their turn and attacking, if their Pokemon's getting knocked out, then they have to put a new one in active, and then you start your turn, and you can potentially do some things. Like maybe they're going to have to throw in somebody who's not ready to go yet, and it does help you just knock him out. I've had that happen a lot where I'll knock someone out, and then my opponent has to throw in like a barrel or something now, or even a Bidoof, and it's like, okay, well, that guy's either going to get knocked out or now potentially even trapped in the active, which is nice for you. So that's really cool. It's pretty easy to set this deck up because I have so many Poffins and Arvens and things like that. So it can be pretty easy to set up, get all of these guys evolved with an evolution in terms of my Weezings, and then, you know, have a blast from there. It's pretty tough to counter as well. I mean, you can boss up Gengars, and is really the only way to do that, because they can boss up a Pidgeot and then it's going to get trapped. And I've got so many other ways of you know, just using that Pidgeot EX to grab what I need. So it's tougher than you would think to counter. In fact, this deck's done better than I expected online. I'm not gonna, obviously it's not a meta deck, we're still talking about rogue decks here, but it gets me a lot more wins than I expected. So that's a lot of fun, right? Weaknesses, it obviously does very little damage. In terms of damage decks, it's like the least damaging deck we've ever done on here, but obviously we are relying on our Weezing, right? Let's throw him back up there. Oh man, poor dude looks so sad. It relies on a slow spread of damage with that, right? I mean, the good thing is that yes, it's only doing 50, which is very little damage, and then we're going to slow spread to the bench, which in fact 10 damage is very little as well, considering it's not guaranteed. You know, there are other decks that are going to do some like slow spread of 10 to our bench, but they're kind of they're doing it every turn. Forget the Pokemon's name. They're doing it every single turn, and you can do it with multiple Pokemon. This one, you've got your Gapejaw and you've got your Gengar. So that's good, but overall it's doing pretty little damage. And then we don't have a real good draw engine here. I mean, Pidgeot is you know, debatably you can kind of call it a draw engine in a way, but it's really not, and it's not the easiest one to get set up because we do need that Rare Candy and Pidgeot in hand. So kind of thinking about things in that way. Now, some other cards to consider swapping into the deck would be a Radiant Greninja. Again, it's not like a necessary card like the Gapejaw Bog that I really love, so like I said, I'm trying not to have cards that are rotating out. The Greninja could be a solid one, but to be quite honest too, not sure how much he would fit. Obviously you would want to remove the Pidgeot, and I mean, we've got Rare Candies. We've already got, you know, our Gengar in there, so I think really Pidgeot is the better way to go over Greninja in this case anyway, but obviously this gives you a permanent draw engine. You've got your Night Stretchers in there, so if you do, it would give you room to actually swap in, you know, because you'd free up 3 other spots, so you can use all those 3 on Super Rods if you want, and then now we're really good in terms of not running out of our Koffings, and we have a draw engine, so it's something to consider, right? Then we've got our Pidgeot EX, and this one would help you to be able to swap in Pokemon at will, and also maybe you would want to throw in some Binding Mochi so that now your Weezing is doing 90 damage. 90 is a lot more than 50. I mean, it's almost twice as much. So something to think about there. I don't think it really works that good here, but it's something to consider. Maybe along with like a Brute Bonnet, maybe instead, and also going with our Mochis. Not a big Brute Bonnet fan because it can get trapped in the active. I don't know, I threw it in there for, you know, maybe. But Janine's Secret Arts, now this is one that I might think about, especially after our double turbos rotate out and you want to continue to use this deck and you'd have 10, because you could, this will help you load up your Weezings on bench, really. You know, and ideally you want to use it for 2 benched Weezings, but even if your active gets poisoned, that Weezing, it's getting one shot anyway, right? So, you know, that's something to think about. Other A-Spec card is a Prime Catcher. That's one I would probably maybe be the only one I would consider. Maybe that Legacy Energy that lets us take 1 fewer prize card, or our opponent 1 fewer prize card when we're knocked out. I don't really find that I need to do a lot of retreating myself, and sometimes it can hurt me. I mean, I guess if you used a Prime through a Pidgeot into active and retreated it, it could help you again with when we're spreading damage to deal that last 50 and get the knockout. Something to think about, but that Amulet of Hope to me is just too good for this deck to swap out. Dark Patch, another rotating card that is on its way out. Would be good for this deck, I feel like, but, you know, not necessary. And that will do it for this episode of the Hawks Pokemon Nest. Hope you enjoyed this deck. I'm excited to get on to our next video, which will come out later this week, and put it to the test in TCG Live. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please hit that subscribe button so you can become part of the Hawks Nest. Thank you all. At the time of recording this video, we're weeks out, but thank you. Just want to give a special thank you to everybody. We hit 50 subscribers, which is my first big milestone on this channel. Thank you all so much for watching and supporting and leaving your comments on what you think and sharing this video with your friends. This is only the beginning. We're just getting going. You know, the Hawks Nest is a small nest right now, but we're growing every day, and I'm excited to continue to get some great content on this channel. And you know, the more subscribers we get, you know, the more I can do this longer and hopefully do it full time one day, and then we can really get some good stuff out here. So anyway, if you're not quite ready to fly it though, just hit that like button. We'll show up in an algorithm near you in the near future. But until then, we're going to see you next time.